Hey, everybody. Here's a quick word about our sponsors. First one being Laser App. You can find them at www.lasrapp.com. They're a laser activated shot reporter. They're amazing what it can do, all of the things that you can do with it, multiple guns, multiple locations, any type of target. They have a smorgasbord of items on their website store. Check them out. Use the affiliate link below or on our website, casualshooterpodcast.com, and use the code CSP2021 for up to 15% off items not covered by the affiliate link. Next up, we have Gun Butter. I am one of those people that I clean my gun all the time because I feel like you've always got to clean the crud and put a fresh coat of lubrication on it. That's because of the stuff we had to use in the military. I didn't like it, but I have finally landed on something I can get behind, and that is gun butter. I did not shoot. I'm. I did not clean my gun at all at nationals. I did not clean it after the match before nationals, nor the match before that. And there's still gun butter oil on my gun, and I'm going to be using their grease on the lugs of my bolt gun. Next, we have Hoist. It is IV level hydration. It's clinically proven to absorb 110% faster than water. You've got all the right ingredients of your electrolytes that you need: magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium. It's all in there. A little bit of sugar, but that mixes the right amount to make it absorb rapidly so it's not sitting in your belly and weighing you down. So check it out. Get hydrated, stay hydrated. And thanks for checking out our sponsors. It helps with the podcast. Welcome to this special episode of the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. This week we have a special guest, or I should say, for this special episode, we have a special guest. He is running for Area 3 Director. Let's go ahead and welcome to the show Luke Faust. How you doing, Luke?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well, thanks. Appreciate you coming on. I know you did the hit factor recently, so but hopefully we hit on a few different topics.
Yeah. It's all new to me. That Hit Factor was actually my first podcast I'd ever been on. So
Okay.
I'm typically more of a behind the scenes guy.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we were talking briefly before we started, and we stopped our conversation so we could get to know each other on air. So I'm going to hit you real quick with the standard questions we have that we use for icebreakers.
Okay.
Favorite movie?
V for Vendetta.
Ooh, okay, good one. Favorite book?
Ender's Game.
Say that one more time.
Ender's Game.
Oh, Ender's Game. I gotcha. My hearing's not so
Yes.
great, so too many
It's all
guns.
good. It's all good.
Favorite gun and caliber, and they don't have to be connected.
9mm.
Okay.
I guess I could expand upon that a little bit. 9mm is just such a robust caliber. So when you look at, I guess that leads into, I'm a quality engineer for federal ammunition, and so ammunition is a big part of my life, and 9mm is the perfect balance of manageable recoil, acceptable lethality. It is so easy to get to feed and function through firearms because of the tapered case wall, and a number of other factors. It is the most robust. It's really hard to get a 9mm not to work. From any length barrel from 2.5 inches to 16 inches. And it's tons of different grain weights of bullets. It's just a super robust, versatile caliber. And then as far as guns, Sig P320. Not that I'm absolutely married to any gun company or any gun, but right now I'm shooting the Sig 320 exclusively. And the thing that I really like about it that Sig kind of pioneered is just being able to swap the grips for anything that anyone on the market comes out with. So I really like the Merzon grips, and they're a different shape that a lot of people don't like, but it fits my hand just perfect. And the most important thing to me for a gun is above all else is just the ergonomics and how it fits my hand, and how the controls are oriented, and it just works. It allows me the flexibility to find what works for me. So
Yeah, that's the one thing I've always done before I've shot a gun or bought a gun is test to see how well it fits my hands.
yeah, and especially in the modern era where like there's a lot of really reputable gun companies making a quality product. You know, you're going to get good function, good reliability out of a bunch of different companies. It really comes down to, you know, just the one of the primary factors is how well does it fit your hand? What are the ergos like? And the cool thing of the 320 is it doesn't really matter, because you can find if you don't like the stock, you know, module, or you don't like the X series modules, well, there's a whole aftermarket support to find something you do like.
Yeah, they've really done a good job with that platform. So I've got nothing to say about that other than good job, Sig.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, if you're into superheroes, great. If not, so here it's a question of who's your favorite superhero. If you're not into that, fine. Then who's your favorite historical figure? Stumped you.
Yeah, no, it's I'm not a history buff, and I'm not a superhero
Okay.
person either. So it's like
Okay.
shit. Yeah, you're coming up empty on both of
Oh,
those.
okay.
I
All
guess
right.
I guess if I were to go into history a little bit, um, some of I wouldn't even say favorite, but men I find intriguing, or people in history I find intriguing, are those in which created, for better or worse, um, huge shifts in the human race as we know it. So I'm not a religious guy, but I find Jesus to be very interesting. Of like, what was that guy life to cause such a shift, even from just a completely logical, non-religious perspective. You know,
Right.
Genghis Khan, Hitler, Alexander the Great, like etc. These human beings
Bonaparte.
that like their name is still known, and they at some point in some way they did something that created a huge shift in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's an indelible stamp in history. So
And so whether it's good or bad lessons or just observations, I find them interesting, but not interesting enough to pursue history, just interesting enough to be interested in tidbits as they come by.
I mean, how long ago did Sun Tzu live, and people still read his book about the art of war?
Mm-hmm.
So in some areas, it's required reading. So yeah, I'm with you. Okay, so
So is that your icebreakers? Was that all of them?
that was it. That was them.
So we were just touching on, I think we may have crossed paths at 2020 Florida Open,
Yes, maybe, possibly. Then I was
possibly.
asking what squad you were or who you shot with.
Yeah, so I work at Federal, and I got into started shooting seriously around 2019. I shot my first USPSA match actually in 2008. And then that was like right as I graduated high school. Like I knew I wanted to get into this stuff and tried it out and did some matches, but I didn't really start shooting seriously until 2019. And I was working at Federal at the time. And so Casey Reed, who works for Federal, and he had gotten in a little, I think he started shooting real seriously around 2012, 2014, somewhere in there. And so I started getting in and learning the ropes and kind of mentored by him. So at the 2020 Florida Open, I was with him, and then he's good friends, and now I'm good friends with Mason Lane and Kaylee Lane and Matt Nash, and it was probably all those kind of that group Stephen Lutman. Yeah, that whole crew is who I would have been squatted with.
Okay. I was with I don't remember who else was on my squad, but Wampler was on my squad. So I don't we definitely weren't on the same squad, I don't think. So but doesn't mean we didn't run into each other there.
Yeah, and I think they had so many different schedules. You can go I have guys, so I'm from Minnesota and I just shot limited and open nationals. And I'm at the end of the match. We're back at the house and I'm strolling through scores and I'm seeing guys from Minnesota and I'm like, I didn't even see them at the match. like these are guys who I shoot with regularly. I see them at, all the time. And I was like, wow, we were there the whole week or weekend and never even crossed paths.
I shot Carry Optics Nationals and I've had Mike Seeklander on a couple of times. So I knew where he was shooting and I went looking for him and I couldn't find him.
Yep.
You would think someone with that big of a personality, everybody knows, but oh, there's Mike. Easy to find. Nope. Crazy.
Yep.
Now, okay. So how long have you been working for Federal?
I started as an intern in 2011. And at that point, they were part of ATK. Federal's kind of been passed around a little bit as far as their corporation that owns them or above them. So 2011, I started working for them at ATK as an intern, working in manufacturing. And then ended up going back to school, finishing my senior year, came back, ended up going to medium cal ammunition, which is a different division of ATK, spent about 18 months there and then transferred back into small cal. And I've been there ever since. So 2011, really pretty much continuously, a little over a decade now.
Okay.
Basically my whole career.
your whole adult life.
Yep. My whole adult life been making ammo for Federal.
Now you don't sound like a native Minnesotan because you didn't say Minnesota.
Yeah, I was born in Texas.
Oh, we're in Texas. I was born in Dallas.
San Antonio.
Okay. Works for me.
So the weird thing is, like, I grew up, I guess, we get into it's complicated, but I just never picked up that kind of Minnesota accent. Even though I only grew up like the first couple years of my life in Texas, it's all just never really picked up that kind of accent. And people have always said that too. I get that a lot, but yeah, a little bit of Texas in me, some Minnesota, and then went to school in Indiana. So I got a little bit of that too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, all right. So we've got you on to talk about the Area 3 candidacy.
Yeah.
What made you, at what point did you go, you know what? I'm going to throw my hat in the ring for Area 3 candidate.
So I'm the kind of person that when I'm not much of a talker, hence not being on podcasts or being, I'm not much of a talker. I'm more of a doer.
Okay.
And when, going to major matches and shooting locally as well and talking with shooters, and you're in that room with a bunch of guys and guys are bitching, and you bitch and you bond over different things like that RO, that was a double, and everybody is, yeah, man, you should have gotten that, And when you hear enough about the organization, we're like, man, we got to bring our own dinner to nationals. Like,
yeah,
that happens enough times in a row. And stuff we didn't have enough chairs or we didn't, and then it comes down to, a lot of other things and kind of this, and I'm the kind of guy that, I'll bond with the guys and talk that, but I'm more about doing. And so it got to a point with me with those discussions and those things that happened that I was like, hey, I don't feel okay not doing something about it at this point. Like if I have these issues with the organization, and particularly the ones that came up recently, whereas And I've obviously put out my campaign platform, 1, free speech, and the bans, those were very upsetting to me. Not in the sense of like, I'm not personally close with any of those dudes, but the message it sent to me was, if you have a problem, you can't speak up. And I had a huge problem with that. And that was the message that I got. And then the second one being the financial stuff. I'm a match director, and I obviously pay my dues as an individual, but as a match director, I pay a decent amount of money to the org. That the financial stuff going on and looking at that from the outside, and hopefully when I get on the inside, I hope it's not as bad as it looks from the outside, but from the outside, I got an impression that I don't feel good about that, and then the third one being just the transparency of when I tried to speak to leadership about that, and email Sherwin, who was my area director at the time, I wasn't getting any response, actually, not even responsiveness. So you kind of stack up those three things, and the answer was, I'm a man of action. I got to do something, and whether or not my campaign is successful, I will know that I put in the effort to do something to make positive change, not just sit in a room with a bunch of guys and complain about it.
Okay. Now, going along with that, do you have any, so you are a match director. So do you sit on the board at the range that you're affiliated with, or do you have any experience like that?
No. Nope. Completely new to that. No board of director experience.
Okay.
No, the range, it's a privately owned range that I run matches for. I'm a contractor with a contracting for them, running their matches. So that's an area in which I'm already starting to read up and learn about and understand.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, any, so I take it then no, I wrote it down to make sure I didn't forget. In nonprofit experience then?
None.
Okay.
All new stuff that I'm rapidly what is it, cramming for the exam. Yeah.
Okay.
Taking the time I can, as an engineer, and I guess maybe not even an engineer, but just as my personality, but an engineer too. I mean, you could define my personality as an engineer. You get used to learning new things. You can't be an expert at everything. And so very regularly I run into a problem that I know nothing about. And I gotta research and learn and build a new skill set. And a lot of what I do for federal, for Osseo Gun Club, which is where I run matches, and for any other organization that I'm working for or supporting, is logistics and understanding, and trying to make things flow smooth, better, making things happen. And so it's just another set of rules to learn, another set of boundaries to understand how to operate within, and then figure out the path to get where I want to go, and start taking the baby steps towards that final goal.
Okay.
Or goals.
Now what have you been, you said you've been studying up. What have you been looking into recently to prepare yourself?
So the two aspects of it, one is speaking to understanding how this organization works. So like number one is read the bylaws and the rules and the website and every aspect of this read them, annotate them, understand, just every single button on the website I've clicked at least 3 or 4 times now. So just the basics of that, going through all the old minutes. So understanding the org was the first kind of tenet there. The second one was getting a copy of Robert's Rules and starting to work my way through that. And then the third is understanding nonprofit law, nonprofit finance, and how all that's supposed to be done, and the regulations around that. So those are the kind of the 3 areas that I'm working my way through. One is pretty much done, and the other 2 I'm just starting to dip my toe into.
Now, okay. I mean, that's pretty good. Now, what are your thoughts on, I mean, look, I know that there are what, 34, 35,000 members. I know they're not all active. I want to say somewhere between 18 and 20 is how many thousand is how many active members there are in USPSA membership. But there are people out there, obviously, with expertise in pretty much every single field you could think of. What are
Yep.
your thoughts on reaching out to members who do have that type of experience?
Yeah, that's I'm already having conversations with people who are experts in certain areas, whether it be and obviously being at nationals, I'm face to face with a lot of different members and people who either A have been a part of the USPSA organization at one point in time, or B have been a part of their own gun club, the board of directors of a nonprofit for a long period of time, and then other on the other side, people who work in finance or work in I haven't found one that specifically works in nonprofit finance, but accountants in other areas, tax accountants, etc. So within my personal network and then within the community, I've developed some of those connections, and a lot of my campaign platform as well is based upon crowdsourcing solutions, if you will, in the sense of understanding that my experience and my knowledge is going to be limited. No one person can have all the answers, all the experience, all the solution. Just as simple of things as like, I haven't shot every division. I don't understand the nuances of every division. And to think that one board member, to make it simple for the divisions, that one board member could have the understanding of every division to be able to knowledgeably vote and change the rules or interpret how rules should be interpreted within a division is kind of crazy to me. So you're going to have to reach out and lean to members. And part of what I've been putting work into is developing the systems in order to make myself accessible and pull the members, not just the ones that I know, but anyone who wants to have their voice heard.
Okay. I feel like that's where, and not to offend anybody, but I kind of feel like that's where some of the things in the past have gone awry. I think there's plenty of people who feel like their voices were never heard. Um, so
Yep.
what are your thoughts on bylaw changes in the near future, as well as the bylaw changes that just occurred?
So when I look at, I guess, when I look at the bylaw changes at the beginning of 2021 or 2022, excuse me, 2022, I think it was the current revision of our bylaws is January of 2022.
Yeah.
There's not much that changed that I agree with the change. I want to say there was maybe one or two lines where I was like, okay, cool, I could buy into that, but I would be I would be quite happy reverting back to one revision prior to January of 2022. I don't like any of those changes. I think that I mean, when you break them down like one by one, you strength, and I'm going from memory here. It's been a minute since I looked at what the changes were, but you strengthen the consequence of being having disciplinary action against you. And at the time, I didn't understand like what the implications of that could be. But there was the lines added for every position that if you had any disciplinary action at the time, I didn't see the play there. Like if there was a play, I didn't see it. And
Right.
then after that, we have so that goes in, and then 6 months later, when elections are coming around, we have more bans than we've ever seen in the sport. And it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of suspicious. It's not. I'm not saying there was a master plan there, but that does not look good. It'd be different if those had been in for 10 years prior. But that timeline isn't great on that. You add the requirement of being an RO cert and a life member to be on the board, and it's like, okay, cool. I guess that's fine. I'll get my RO cert and pay for my life membership to be able to run to try to support the org. It's just more hoops for people to jump in to try to volunteer. And then obviously the creation of the executive director position, that was a big one. In pretty much every organization that I've ever worked for and been involved in is too top heavy. There's too many chiefs, not enough Indians. And I, just from the basic like logistics, I'm a quality engineer. I like efficiency. I want two things. I want as few, extra chiefs as I can. And then also I would want, as a member, I would want as much power in the hands of elected officials as possible, and not appointed officials. So it kind of went against both of those. And then I think the last change that was in there was the change from, they changed it to 3/4. I forget exactly what it was as far as, future bylaw changes are now. It's got to be 3/4 of the board. I think it was at like, was it two-thirds?
I think, I think that's all it was 2/3.
Yeah. And so, once again, it's not like I'm like horribly opposed to the principle, but when you're looking at like the appearance of that, where the current president was not elected, oust, all these things are going on, and then you make a bunch of changes, and then you try to cement them as much as you can by making it harder to change later. God, if you I'm not saying you had malicious intent, but that does not look good. It just doesn't.
No, I agree. I mean, there's a couple things we could look at. One, the current bylaws at the time said, timely election of a new president, and it took a year to get the president in. There is no dictionary in the world that says that's timely. I'm sorry.
Agreed.
There isn't. So I do feel like they decided to take advantage of that period to change the organization to whatever they wanted. And even if they didn't, that is still the way it looks. And make some of these changes and do some of these things, like you said, that, were they setting people up to be able to do certain things and then to turn right around and expect you to have an insane percentage of board members needed to pass a bylaw? It's just like, what they didn't, it's almost like they didn't want anybody to be able to come in and change what they did.
It's the way it looks.
Yeah. And like you said, maybe it isn't malicious, but the appearance isn't good. So,
yeah. And a lot of times when you're not communicating, when the communication isn't very free flowing, if you don't tell people outright, this is exactly what we're doing and why we're doing it, and this is, if you're not clearly communicating, then the way it appears is the way it's perceived. And that's how it appears.
All right. So I've got two questions, and they go right in with this. One, you mentioned the executive director. So I want to get I'll expand on that in a minute. The bigger one I have is I know you have on your Luke Faust website, and in your Instagram, that you are all for streaming board meetings, which, if I had 4 thumbs, I'd give you 4 thumbs up. I think that's awesome. Now, so going, first off, how are you going to deal with the other board members who are going to try to push back on that? And 2, with the executive director, I'm going to throw a scenario out there. Let's say, I don't know how long her contract is for, but let's say it's 4 years, and you're in office when that 4 years hit. What are your thoughts at that point? Would you want to extend the contract for an executive director, or revert back to where you had a president who ran all of that and was a full-time employee? All right. And I'll let you go for those 2 questions.
Yeah. So let's separate those out, because they
are 2 separate things.
So let's take executive director. We'll talk about that in a minute. Your first question was
streaming, and how do you? I know there are board members that are going to, aren't for it. So tactic or technique would you use to convince them that streaming is the way to go for transparency purposes?
So it's not, I don't have delusions about the uphill climb that I am approaching. Meaning, I view realistically my first year or two as me being nothing but a dissenting vote that gets nothing done. Realistically, most of the board has voted in line. And the optimistic side of me says that, me speaking my logic about perception of us and the board and the board's, public view and how beneficial the members would be to be able to see these discussions and feel like they have more of a voice and understanding of what we're doing. I can present those appeals, and I will, present those appeals. And maybe the optimistic side of me says, hey, maybe I'll be able to convince some people that this is a better way of doing things. And the more realistic or pessimistic side of me says, you're just going to be that one guy who's voting no on everything, or, dissenting for a while and
Right.
and kind of holding that seat until the membership across the country and other areas can decide they want some change too. And maybe even for my area, I can, within the abilities that I will have, I can create some systems and create some show a different way of doing things where other areas go, hey, area 3, they got to vote on where they hold their area championship. That was really freaking cool. I wish we got to do that, like stuff like that, where it's like, I set the example, I set a new tone of what this position could be, what they could do for their members, how they could give their members a voice. And then maybe they'll vote in other people that I don't have to work as hard to convince. Or maybe, that example will show people who are currently there that, hey, maybe this is a better way of doing things. And whether it be, the transparency and putting out the board meetings completely, or the transparency and not giving, a budget that's so like watered down, and giving the members the whole budget and letting them see everything that's going on. Just transparency in every aspect of the organization. If you have, I'm a firm believer that, like, if you have nothing to hide and you have nothing to be ashamed of, like, you can still make mistakes, but if you have nothing to hide, there's no reason not to be transparent in every aspect of this, especially as a member-driven nonprofit organization. The members can know everything. I really struggle seeing any aspect of this organization that the members can't, if they want. I think, like, I don't know if it was our conversation or a conversation I had earlier in the day, but like, somebody was saying 80% of the members, 90% of the members, they don't care. They just want to go shoot matches. 100% agreed. I don't want to put this stuff in their faces, but if they want to go on the website and they want to click in, the tab to go in to see the IRS Form 990s and see all the budgets and see the projected budget for the next year and all that, let them do it. Make sure it's all out there. Make sure it's in detail. Make sure it's explained well. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, or I've heard that, some of the arguments are, people can't be videoed, or the other thing was, people won't vote the way they would normally vote if people watched it. I'm like, then why are they there? What are they afraid of?
That's the point of recording it.
Exactly. That is the whole point. And everybody should know it. I mean, look,
Yes.
I've always said I'm not sure. I'm sure it's similar in Minnesota. We have counties, and you have a local county government, and that meeting gets streamed live on cable network. So why can't the USPSA do that? What are they afraid of? We should hear the discussion that's going on,
Yes, 100%. And there's, in any situation, just taking to my job, there's let's say a quality, issue or something where you have to make a decision. And part of being in that leadership role is you need to make a decision. And sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. And sometimes you have to be accountable for when you're wrong. And hey, yeah, I said this or I voted this way. And at the time, this is the information I had, and I thought it was the best path because of this. And anyone who is, acting in the best interest of the organization and reasonably articulate can explain that to anyone who's asking. And I really just don't see I don't see the concern. I try to live my life in a way that I don't ever say or do anything that I wouldn't do in front of anyone or everyone. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't say something about someone that I wouldn't say when they were there, like,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and that same principle I think can be applied to the board, and applied to the board meetings is, well, if you wouldn't say it if everyone was watching, or you wouldn't vote that way if everyone was watching, then you shouldn't be voting or saying those things regardless.
Agree. So the second part, I'll just go ahead and restate all of that, was what are your thoughts on having a split executive? You have an executive director and a
Yep.
president
Yep.
versus just a president.
So there's two things. The first thing was the money side of things, which I there's a lot of people making six figures in that org right now, and I don't know how justified that is. And from my understanding, that is a very recent thing, and that you dial back the org 10, 15 years ago, and the salaries were 1/6 of what they are now, and there was 1/3 of the employees. But with that, I want to say that all of those, I like having an elected president that basically leads the org and is the president and makes the decisions and is elected and accountable via elections for his decisions and his leadership. I like that. I like the way it was structured. That being said, I'm coming into the system that it is now. I don't have a good understanding of right now what the difference is in what the president and the, and I'm not like literally, what do you do? Like walk me through the decisions you make on a daily, monthly, yearly basis. Like, let me understand that role. And this is the same thing I do when walking into a new area of the plant and trying to learn, all right, how do you run your machine? What are the, how do you got to learn the area before you can solve the bigger problem that maybe is happening upstream. So learn what the current structure of the president is, and the executive director. What are they doing? What are they, what's the vision for what they're doing? And then I think I can make once inside the org, I can make a more informed opinion on what I think that should be. I think that like I've already said, I'd rather have one president. I don't think you need two people. I think there's too many people in the org right now. I don't think you need two people for that job. But maybe there is some way that a sensible way that the responsibilities can be broken down to make sense to have that in two separate positions. But from outside the org, I'm just not seeing that.
Yeah, I don't either. My preference would be just the president, but it is what it is. Like you said, that's what you're going into, so you have to deal with it.
Yep. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for paying, I'm all for paying for top talent. Like I have no problem paying people for a fair salary for doing a stellar job. But I am all against paying people exorbitant salaries to do what could be done in half or part-time or contributing nothing to the org.
Can't argue with that. Now there is, since we're talking about, dealing with these situations, going in and knowing you're going to be 1/9 basically of a vote for things. There was one thing you had. So on your website, and
Yep.
this is also what you posted to Instagram.
Yep.
You it asked about what qualifications set you apart and stuff like that, and you said an unwavering moral compass combined with aggression, tenacity, and a willingness for uncomfortable confrontation.
Yes.
Now, coming from someone who doesn't know you,
Yes.
my first thought would be, at what level of confrontation are we talking? So, would you mind taking a moment and explaining what that means?
So it was important for me to express that I am not go along to get along, agreeable, going to just go with the flow kind of person. I'm not the kind of person that when social pressure is applied, like subtly and not subtly, or someone gets mad and starts yelling, like someone says, some people, they'll cower under that, or they'll back off, or they'll like, oh, okay, they're getting really upset, I'm going to kind of lean away from that or back off or not over. I have no problem leaning into that. I'm not an attacker, but I'm sure willing to defend, and I am willing to defend aggressively and hold my ground. And so understanding that, I think that there's potentially, every guy I've met who's on the board right now is a really nice guy when you talk to him. Of the ones I've met, like they're really nice guys. Yeah. They're not bad dudes. They're not, and I do think that they, at least once again, the ones I met or know, they have they really do love the sport and want the best for the sport. But I think potentially right now the current board has maybe a little bit too much agreeableness in them. If most of the board is going one way, whether they believe in their hearts or not, that's the right way, because most of the board's going this way, they're going to keep going. And I'm just not that guy. Like I can be in the same room with someone, look at them and say, hey, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with this at all. I think it's wrong.
Okay. All right. Well, that does explain it. Well, that's good. I like that. Obviously, I'm not voting. I'm in Area 8, but I mean, still, whomever gets elected in Area 3, it affects everybody in USPSA.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
I like it. Good answer. All right. So there was. So the financial integrity part that you have on your website.
Yep.
Obviously, that's been one of the topics of discussion lately is, their operating budget being in the red. Would you put that? Obviously, you have Area 3 to run, but you're a
Yes.
board member for the entire organization. So I want to get to Area 3 eventually. But knowing that they're in the red, is that like your top priority, or what would be a top priority for you getting on the board of directors?
My priorities are in order of being listed. So free speech is number one. Absolutely, completely against the bans, and not only just the bans, but the way that they've been handled. Like that's if there's the one thing that pushed me over that said I'm running, it was exactly that. It was when I felt that I couldn't speak, was what pushed me to say I got to do something. When I felt like, oh, I don't think I can speak up anymore. What if they ban me for speaking up? That was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And so free speech is absolutely number one, making sure that bans don't happen. A lot of bans that have happened are reversed. Even ones that happened before, as I find, there was a guy And I don't even know the guy. I just saw the messages or saw him post somewhere, and I don't know if it was Reddit or this or wherever. He was like, "Yeah, I got banned like 4 or 5 years ago because I was shooting matches using a fake name because I live out on the West Coast and I work for an employer in which would not look kindly upon me shooting in any kind of competition, shooting at all, owning firearms, and I didn't want that information for me to be public." And he got banned for just using a fake name to sign up for matches. It's like that makes me wonder how many other guys are out there who got slapped with bans for completely reasonable things, that we don't even know about because you can't look up. So I can go in there and I can look up for ineligible competitors, but I have to know their last name and I have no reason to see why they're ineligible. So I really can't look up who's ineligible and who's not. And so, I mean, number one is a complete review of all of that. And then completely restructuring that process. I like to say, I think it's maybe potentially a little naive, but I like to say that I can't think of a reason that anyone would need to be banned. Like if it's that serious of an issue, then it sounds like it would be a legal issue that you have the authorities handle. That being said, I know that may be a little bit naive, but if we do continue to have a process for taking disciplinary action against members, it needs a hell of a lot more transparency. And needs to be very, very easy to understand in every aspect of what is going to happen and what did happen. So financial integrity, sorry, I kind of got off a little bit.
No,
Financial integrity
okay.
is number two. And the financial integrity side for me is when I look at the budget, I see plenty of income and way too much expenditure. I don't think we have an income problem. And I look at the expenditures and I start asking questions about, hey, why is our budget for the office expenses like $400,000 in 2021? Like that doesn't make sense to me. We don't even have that many employees, and our employees are spread all over across the country. And there was other things like, okay, cool. The Front Sight magazine lost $160,000 last year. I don't understand that either. That's something where, okay, cool. It's pulling in ad revenue, definitely. But if it's losing more in printing and publishing it than it's making, then that's not doing anything for us. And I think that could easily be the physical print, which is most of the cost could be diverted into just, like I said, online, like an online newsletter, which they already do. And, if you want to do some kind of magazine thing, which I don't even think that's really relevant today. Like that's not how most people consume information anymore. So I think there's better ways that we can put into both creating ad space for advertisers and putting out digital content. So yeah, I kind of got off there. Do you want to loop me back into your original question?
Yeah. But I'm actually liking the way you're going. So what I'll do is guide it a little bit. I'm going to guide you back up to the free speech because I agree with everything you said there. I do feel though that there is one bannable offense, and that would be multiple integrity violations.
Okay.
An example of that would be cheating. You get caught
Yep.
multiple times cheating. This whole sport is based on integrity, even doubles. You know what I mean? Like if you know that shot's not a double, you shouldn't be calling the RO to put the device up there to see if it's an actual, what it is or not. If if you're not sure, absolutely go for it. But we've all heard those stories where people know and they're like, yeah, I lucked out. He went ahead and gave me a double. Well, that's minor. That's not a bannable offense. That's not what I'm saying. But there are some things that, maybe somebody went and looked at some stages on a level 2 somewhere after dark and activated some, you know what I mean? So there are things that I feel are, but it's always going to be integrity related.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many things that are difficult in the sport like that. I could see it, but it would have to be well documented, and like I said, it's got to be completely transparent and well documented.
Absolutely.
Just because if not, you end up with a situation where oh, so and so asked for too many doubles, he needs a ban, and really what happened was so and so really pissed off someone in power, and that's why he's getting a ban. And you got to have enough transparency. Yeah, you got to have enough transparency in any kind of disciplinary system. You got to have enough transparency that there's absolutely no way that could happen, and that just isn't the case right now.
Agree. And going back to number one as well, I've always said the higher up you get in an organization, the thicker your skin has to be, because you become the one under the microscope. Not us down here shooting, locals or even level twos, So I feel like there are people that get up in that position and feel like nobody's allowed to question them, when really it's the exact opposite. Everybody's going to be questioning you. All right.
And yeah, you 100%, you have to be able to take that criticism and understand that, and understand as well that like there's always going to be a differing opinion from yours. There's always going to be people with different life experiences, different stances, different views, and they're not going to see things the same as you, and that's okay. And that is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And you keep saying that we're on the financial integrity part, that you feel there are too many people in the organization and their expenditures are out of control.
Yep.
Which I don't necessarily disagree with you at all there. Have you looked at anything recently or had privy to see anything to go, you know what, I feel like maybe this or maybe that, this is how we could do a few things in the short term? Obviously you have to have a long-term goal, but in the short term, maybe we could do A or B.
Yeah. So the number three, and I kind of went through in depth, a more in-depth look at the budget than what is provided on the website, as well as the stuff that's provided on the website. And the things that really pop out to me are my number 1, 2, and 3. If I were to like do just 1, 2, and 3 right off the top, because if you really attack more than 3 things, you it's not as focused as you'd like to be. So number 1 was the office expenditures. We have a physical office that they pay like $50,000 a year for office space in Washington. Wow. There's only 4 employees who live even locally close to that. It's more executive assistant, staff kind of stuff. It's none of the leadership positions. And a lot of them work from home anywhere. There's only one person in the office at any given point in time. And a lot of times there's no one in the office. We're paying $50K for that. And then that's just for the space. And then there's an additional $400K in the budget, and which is office expenditures, which isn't explained at all what that actually is. To my understanding, a lot of that is like printing and stuff for the magazine, which that I don't know how much of just killing the office space that will kill. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff there. There was under that too, there was like exorbitant amounts for like communications at the office. Like it was a lot more than I think any kind of internet or phone bill ever could be. So that should all go away if you get rid of a physical office space. I mean, the modern era of working from home is the way things are going, and it makes more sense. They're already doing it, from what I understand. We just are paying for an empty office as I get it. And then with that as well, that kind of ties into the magazine, which I already talked about. So office space, let's just round that up. That's about, you just call it like $400K that you'll save there per year. Not like that's per year that you cut there. And that's even on the low side. There's a bunch of categories in there that are broken out from that are or not even broken out from that on top of that. And then you have the other one, a front site magazine. I just don't see that creating the value that I don't see it being worth it. I think there's a much more cost effective ways of communicating with the membership. So that's 160K loss right there that you could kill off. And then furthermore, I think that just the operating a front site magazine, that is the full role of some of those positions. So by doing that, you also no longer have a lot of workload on those positions, and you can either consolidate that into one role, and or if some of those personnel have valuable skills, you can shift them off into other parts of the org. And then the third one was travel. So when you look at the travel budget, I think it was $260,000 last year in travel. That doesn't include meals. Like meals were a separate, like $57,000 line item. So $260,000 in travel. And that came over $100,000 of that was from 2 employees. And I travel a lot, and I know a lot of other people who travel a lot. I don't understand. And I also think these guys have important jobs, that require travel, but I don't see any way to justify over $100,000 in 1 year of travel consecutively. Like, this is year over year, and it keeps building and getting more and more and more. And from what I understand, and obviously these policies, and this is another thing, these policies aren't public like they should be, in my opinion. There should be a written travel policy for employees that is public. As I understand it right now, there is no travel policy for employees. It's basically a free-for-all, which I think some of the travel that is done is important, and make sure that the organization runs, and whether it be NRI seminars, they run properly and the NRI does what it does, or the national events do what they do, or whatever else, maintaining industry relations, so forth. But I think a lot of that travel is potentially questionable, and or, all right, I don't understand how you get to 100,000, but I don't fly first class. Is this first class travel? I don't book hotels last minute. I shop around. I book things 6 months in advance, etc. Is that why we're seeing these exorbitant costs, or is it because we're traveling all the time? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't add up. That's my third area in which I feel like we could really cut some expenses. And then, those are the 4-digit cutters. There's a lot of, those are the 6-digit cutters, excuse me, 6 digits in all of those items. There's a lot of 5-digit items as I was looking through the budget that I'm like, all right, that's a lot per month in cell phone bills. What's going on there? Other things like that just don't add up, but I'd start with those first 3.
Now, did you say the office space was 50 grand a month or 50 grand a year?
50 grand a year. I might have misspoke if
Okay.
I said that. 50 grand a year. And that's just for the lease on the office.
Gotcha. Yeah, I may have misheard. So that's why I was just clarifying.
Yeah. And, there's other things in those budget that seem ridiculous. Like, if you go to, at first when I went to the, the budget that's on there on the website right now for the 2022 projected budget, and it has like $60,000 in bank fees. I was like, what the heck is that? Like, how do you pay $60,000 in bank fees? Like, I have a free checking account. And then I find out, oh, that's credit card processing fees. They're taking in they pay 3% on everything that comes in. And okay, maybe if they're taking in, God, now that I think about it, that math doesn't even make sense either. It shouldn't be that much.
Well, I mean, even then though, it's not a cost. It's just a loss of revenue. You know what I mean? It's not, they're going to, like, if I pay for a 5-year membership and let's say it's $150. Okay. Well, instead of you getting $150 of it, you just take 3.5% off. So what is that? 3, 4, 5, 25. So you get, 144, 70 or 25 or whatever it is. So it's not like you're paying fees. So it shouldn't come out of a budget. That's just income. You can then budget out what you're going to get from each one. So that's weird.
It's a very weird way. That's not the only weird thing that they have on that budget. Another one is they report. So they have investments. They have, you could call it somewhere between 1 and 2 million that is invested and providing returns. And they project the returns of those investments into the next year and include it into the profit and loss budget for the next year. Even though it's unrealized gains. They're not going to sell or cash out that investment. They look at how much the investment is going to increase in value and then say that. So you could have a budget that, with their current way of budgeting, you could have a budget that looks green, but their actual cash balance is going down, which that doesn't make any sense to me either. Like those investments should be just put out, if those are like long-term investments, to have like a nest egg for the organization to purchase property, do something in the long term, that should not be included in our, annual budget at all, in my opinion.
Totally agree. I mean, I've been a member of different volunteer organizations, and it's always been, this is what our budget was this month, and we have now in savings, we have $180,000.
Yep.
So it's separate. It's completely separate than what they use for their operating budget. So it is still, and look, I'm not an accountant, so.
And when I'm not either, but I manage my own personal finances.
Me
I've
too.
helped a lot of friends like set up, when I've always kind of had a knack for money and setting up budgets and saving and investing. And so I've had a lot of friends come up to me and be like, hey man, how do you do this? Like what? And I'm like, all right, cool. You're going to set up this account. You're going to do this. And this is how I invest. And you go through here. There's no fees in this. And so like I've done enough personal finance that I can look at something, an organization's budget and say, hey, this doesn't look right from even an uneducated perspective. I'm seeing hella red flags. Like if this was my friend's budget and she had come up to me and said, hey, what do you think? How can I get, out of credit card debt? I would be like red flags everywhere. And that's what I'm seeing.
Right. I would switch banks if I lost $60,000 a year in bank fees. I mean, that's crazy.
I'm very interested to see more of a breakout of how we spent $60. And this is for anyone who's watching and is like, what are we talking about? Go to the USPSA website. You can find the financial documents. You can look at the IRS Form 990. You can look at the projected budget for 2022. It's all on the website. And there's not enough explanation there to understand what's going on. So I'm only slightly more maybe in the know just from talking to a bunch of people as I'm asking these questions, but go ahead and do your own research, look at it, reach out to your area directors, ask these questions. I want these answers just as bad as you do.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out where I don't remember where the budget information
member resources.
is.
Yep. And then financial documents, the right side, other resources, scroll to the bottom.
Yep, that's why I was looking on the left side.
Yep. Yeah, you can. There's actually a lot of information. So these are all the financial. So they have it kind of weird here. You have financial reviews and audits, which that's when they have like every third year they have an audit, but the other two is a financial review. They still haven't got the 2021 one up yet, which I found to be very strange. You click over to the next one, you got the Form 990s, which those are all there. But those are really hard to read because they're a tax form, but there's a lot of good information in there. And then this is the public budget that they, produced earlier in the year, for 2022. And the way that they come up with this budget, from my understanding, is they just take the expenditures from the previous year and they add a couple, say, bump everything up by 5% or adjust here or there a little bit. And then they publish their budget based upon expenditures from last year. That's the extent of the math that goes into that one.
Okay. Well, that's different. All
Yep.
right, let me update that so everybody can see. Okay. There we go. Yeah, it's interesting that they don't have any of the audits since 2020. So I guess they haven't. I thought they would have posted 2021 in the middle of the summer.
You would think.
I mean, that's when most that I'm aware of, most people do. So, okay. Interesting. All right. Let me go back to where we were. There we go. Let's
see if I can get a light on in here. It keeps getting darker and darker.
Okay.
I'm in Doesn't look like it. I'll reorient a little bit here if I can. I'm in an Airbnb out in Alabama, so not in my home. Yeah. So we'll be here. So I just finished shooting limited nationals, or limited for me, race gun nationals, and we got 4 days to kill hanging out in Talladega, Alabama,
So
until production this next weekend.
So what I'm hearing, Luke, is you lost to a 9mm Canic.
Oh, yes, that did happen. That did happen. Yep.
That's all right.
There
are worse things in life than that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I had quite a rough match, but there was no way that I would ever not lose to a 9mm Canic in his hands. Or man, there's a lot of guys who are damn good, and props to Nils. Last year when he was 10 points behind Mason shooting minor, everybody kind of had that moment, like, my God, like he was second place shooting minor, and watching this match, to be honest, I didn't really, obviously I'm good friends with some of those top guys, Mason included. And I don't know that I wasn't even in that squad. I was over in a whole different zone, but, Mason's my boy. I'm refreshing the leaderboard, watching, and watching. And then Nils just went on a tear those last couple stages and just, put it all out there and jumped to the top. And then you had the whole drama with Scott Brown, and he was shooting in the afternoon session, and we're back at the house, like refreshing again, just sitting there practice and like we'd all be sitting around hanging out, and like another one of Scott's stages would post, and like we're, everybody's like, oh my God, and like, oh, he got a no shoot. And then we're like calculating, we're like, okay, so he's going into his last stage, and it's a 7-round speed shoot. He's got to get 4 points on Nils. And we're like, okay, so he's got to shoot all alphas in like 3.4 seconds or whatever it was. And if he doesn't, he's got to do that to win. And the kid, and I don't know Scott Brown at all. I've in passing, but like we saw the score post and we were like, oh my God, he did it. He beat everyone by 15% on that stage. He just swung for the fences and connected, and it was just not good enough by one Charlie. And it was like, oh my God, wow. It was one of the, between that and watching, we were actually physically there to watch the finish in the open with Christian and JJ and Aaron, all within a point of each other going into the last stage. It was the most exciting nationals finishes in both divisions I think I've ever been, there to witness.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing from a distant too. I went to Carry Optics National, so I got to watch that happen. But I mean, when they went into the last stage, Nils had such a big lead. It's like, okay, as long as Nils doesn't get disqualified, pretty much it's game over. Yeah, the lead was way too big. But the women's Carry Optics Nationals was like, oh, there was like 5 points. So you're like, uh-oh, how is this going to end up? So I would say this year's been super exciting for finishes when it comes to nationals.
Yep. And the crazy thing too with like the way that these finishes happened is and I don't know the exact reason for it. I wouldn't say I'm a fan of it, but the super squads now finish in the AM and there's a PM session afterwards. And so, when you have potentially someone like you can have someone blow a curve on a stage and have overall point total shift. And normally it's just noise, because it's never more than like a half a point, maybe a, 3/10 a point, a half a point, something like that. And it never really makes a difference. But when you have the super squads all finished in the morning, and then you have guys shooting in the afternoon, and the super squad top 3 are all split by less than a point, it could make a difference. And so that makes it unintentionally, I think, kind of interesting, because you're like, okay, we think this is the finish, but is it? And it ended up being, I was watching Aaron and JJ scores, and when they finished the morning session, they were half a point apart. And then by the end of the afternoon session, they were 0.8 of a point apart. So Aaron it helped him. It pushed him even further forward, but it just easily could have gone the other direction and pushed him even closer to JJ. So,
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. At least at Carry Optics, they finished in the afternoon. So when they were done, the scores were final.
Yep. I think I definitely prefer that. I don't know the reason for why it got changed recently, but historically it's always been like that, and I prefer um the climactic finish and it's done. As much as exciting as it was having the like drug out, like we don't know, kind of sort of we think we know but we don't. I'd rather just have it. All right, we're done.
Yes.
Congratulations, dude. All right, let's go home.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. Now, so you're there for, are you shooting production?
Yes, yes. I am primarily a production shooter.
Okay.
That's what I shoot 90% of the time. I think limited was my this limited nationals was my first limited match of the year. Maybe I shot like one or two locals like earlier in the year or something, just trying out gear or whatever. But yeah, that was I I probably I probably need to shoot a little more limited if I'm gonna want to hop into nationals and expect to not be disappointed. That was the takeaway from this.
Okay. Well, at least you had the similarity of iron sights and iron sights. That might be where it ended, though.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But I had some gun issues, some feeding issues that would have been
Uh,
worked out with just more time under the gun, and figuring those out. And I don't know exactly what it was, whether it was gun or ammo or some combination thereof. And then just yeah, a high cap division is very not normal for me. I have a tendency to leave a position and reload as a production shooter, and I did a lot of extra reloads. Everybody's
oh,
looking at me funny
wow.
because I'm shooting limited with 6 mags on my belt, and I'm like, yeah, I might need them the way I move.
Well, if it's an ammo thing, you might want to talk to one of those QA guys at Federal and see what's going on, or
Yeah,
QC guys.
yeah. Yeah, I may have been shooting some experimental stuff. That's some new stuff that is not out yet. So yeah, that's also on me. But part of this is it's cool because and this is obviously what I wanted to do since I was a teenager. But my hobbies and my passions and my job, there's not a black and white line between those. So hey, are you working or are you shooting? Or and the answer is yes,
Yes.
yes. So
Yeah.
always testing, always gathering data, always learning things and bringing them back to make our ammo better.
Well, and now you have some real world data.
Yep, yep.
So works out. All right.
And, and
So
and a lot of guys, I guess, teeing off of that a little bit. The last thing I thought of was,
mhm.
I learned so much from talking to guys who are in USPSA because I'll have an issue with something and I'll bring it back to federal and we'll talk about it. And the customer service guys will be like, hey, no one's calling and complaining about this. We're not sure if it's a real issue or whatever. And talking to a lot of the USPSA guys, especially some of the guys who've been in the sport for like 20 years or something, and they'll be like, yeah, duh, of course that's an issue. We know about that. You got to make sure you load this to this length, or you crimp like this, or these bullets don't feed in this gun, and this gun, or whatever that is. And all these guys, it's just like common knowledge, and they don't even bother complaining about it because they already know what's up.
Yeah. Yeah. You come up with a workaround.
And a lot of that, yeah, a lot of that tribal knowledge is just in these guys' heads, and especially with the massive experience that they have reloading and stuff. I learn a lot that makes me better at my job just from talking with shooters about ammo, about what they do, and about things they've seen in their extensive experience in the sport.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, I shoot a Canic rival myself. And when I got it, I went out to shoot it and it didn't like any of my hand loads with coated bullets, none of them.
Okay.
And I was like, what in the hell is going on? And
And what particular things did it not like? Was it not grouping well? Was it not feeding well?
no, it shoots when it would shoot. It shot great. But what I found was you've basically got to load it to the shortest length possible, like 108.
Okay.
It's just such a tight tolerance that anything beyond that, the way the the coated bullets. Sorry, I've got a Great Dane over here digging around on my desk.
No
What are
worries.
you doing? What are you doing, big boy? Um, the way the coating changes the shape of the bullet on a 124 and expands it, it didn't want to feed properly. So I had Todd Jarrett. I shot a local here. I'm where Matt Nash and them live.
Okay.
Um, so that's where I'm at. And I was shooting a local match. Todd Jarrett was shooting, and he was ROing this one stage. And I had a detonation where the slide wasn't completely in battery. And I was like,
Oh,
whoa. It was the very last shot on that stage. So I shot and I'm like, I stopped for a second. I'm looking at the gun and he goes, go ahead and, you know, empty the gun. Cause I was looking first before I did anything to make sure there was nothing going on that was going to be hazardous. So
and how
I
did
did
you
all
know it
that.
was out of battery at that point in time? Could you feel it, or what happened?
I, I did feel it. I saw a little bit more of a flash. The funny thing is you couldn't catch any of that on the video I had. I even have
Okay.
aim cam glasses and I didn't catch it. Todd Jarrett, thank God he was the guy ROing. He's like, yeah, you had an, he goes, do you know what happened? I said, no. And he goes, you had an out of battery detonation. I was like,
Okay.
well, thank God you were ROing because I trust you with your 100 years of life experience shooting. I
Yep.
believe you. So I started making some phone calls and I ended up calling, we use brass monkey bullets.
Okay.
So I ended up sending him a message, and he's a firefighter in the western half of the country. I'm a firefighter over here. So he's like, hey, just give me a call. So I gave him a call and we chatted for a while. And that's when I learned that the problem was the coated bullets. And he's actually working. I don't remember. I checked their website. I can't remember if it's out now, but like a 136 or a 135, 136 grain bullet that would actually fix that issue where you wouldn't have that feeding problem in any of the guns. Factory ammunition, doesn't matter what it is, shoots like a charm. Not a problem
And
at all.
your feeding issues, were you getting caught on the front of the magazine or the feed ramp or the top of the chamber? Like where were the rounds getting stuck and not feeding?
In the actual barrel. So I did a plunk test because
Oh, so
I cased.
they were chambering but not going. Oh, okay, so you were almost like you were basically hitting the lands and the grooves with the bullet before you
Yes,
actually got the case fully into the chamber. So
correct.
okay, and
So
that
when it couldn't
mm,
push it, when the slide wouldn't push the cartridge up onto the bullet, that's when the slide didn't quite go into battery. But it was enough that the firing pin was still able to strike the primer.
interesting. Okay. Yeah,
So
and with those with coated
good.
bullets, they have to, you know, and I think, and this is something that, you know, I won't say I'm the guy who came up with this, but as I understand it, and as I'm, you know, with jacketed bullets and raw lead bullets, you know, if you were to just cast your own bullets, you know, the raw lead, you oversize them a little bit, you make them a little bit bigger so that they, you know, they get proper biting into the lands and the grooves and all that. And
Right.
because the copper is so much harder, you know, so basically like copper, you set at SAMI center spec, you know, if you're doing a copper jacketed bullet, and for a cast bullet, you want to go a thou or so above that, you know, in order to get good bite. And so, you know, with coated bullets, you have, they're basically, those coatings, at least the ones that I've worked with, are basically as soft as just shooting a raw lead bullet. And so you have to go a little bit oversized, but then you run into I've never heard of this before. This is new information to me, but I could see how if you had a little bit oversized bullet and a longer overall length or a certain profile that didn't neck, you know, the bullet profile didn't come in until later,
Yeah.
and it was more of a gradual slope on the ogive. You could have it hit the lands and grooves before it was supposed to, and not have any kind of bullet jump at all.
And that's exactly what the issue was or is.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I had to, and I contacted Canic. They're like, hey, send us your gun. And they're like, hey, we didn't find any problems, and their customer service was good, but I know that
Yep.
they used factory ammo. You know,
Yep.
I'm sure that's what they shot, which look, it shoots fantastic. When I went to, I don't know if you took advantage of the sight-in range there at CMP, but I did.
Okay. Yep.
And, 15 yards, I think it was, whatever it was. Man, that thing was dead on when I confirmed my zero. It was
Yep.
dead on. So I was like, okay, this, it shoots absolutely perfect. I love the way it shoots. It's just those coated bullets. So anyway, they actually sent me a new gun anyway. They're like, look, we're going to send you a new gun anyway. We can't find anything wrong with the gun. It's operating fine. We'll send you a new gun. I was like, okay. But I said, when I asked, I was like, well, what exactly did they do, or find out? And the response I got was what you had just said. Basically, was we haven't heard anybody complain of this. So as far as we know, there's no issue. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And unfortunately, that's the way it goes. But like you said, people already have an answer to it, so they just work around the known.
Mhm.
And this, I'm not going to say it's an issue, but whatever you want to call it. I've now heard that after a couple of thousand rounds of factory ammo, the throat will open up a little bit, and then the coated bullets will fit just fine.
Mhm.
So I'll
And
have
a
to
lot
check
of,
that out.
and I don't know what it sounds like you had more of a severe defect rate, but a lot of things that happen that at very low defect rates, whether it be feeding issues or all different, shooters that don't shoot at the volume of USPSA shooters just don't see this stuff. So I'll come in and I'll say, to my quality group, I'll say, hey, because I shoot a lot of federal ammo, and I'll say, hey, I'm seeing this in our more recent batch. And, someone else goes, well, what's the defect rate? And I go, like one in 1,000 or 1 in 5,000. And, and they go, well, no one else is going to shoot enough. That's
To
a,
know that.
5,000 rounds maybe in a month for me, but like, who else is going to do that? And so it's when you shoot high volumes, like a lot of USPSA, especially USPSA competitors who are going to travel to nationals and shoot, at a high level or compete at majors, you're going to see stuff that the general population doesn't. From stuff that like I study how like different bullets over time. So I'll take, and I thought I saw this phenomenon in my guns, where I was like, hey, why are my, when I first got the gun, I got a brand new gun, right? I got brand new gun, and I zero with the ammo type I'm going to use, and then I zero with a couple other ammo types that I might use, because I'm always switching ammos because I'm shooting all the federal stuff, right? So I got to zero with the HSD hollow points, the American Eagle, the Syntec, this, and they're all stacking on top of each other with a brand new gun, and everything's great, right? And then maybe, a couple months later, I switched to a different ammo type, and it's not hitting the same spot as everything else. And I was like, I know I zeroed everything, right? And I even got pictures of it. I zeroed everything. So, I take, I've been doing a study for a little bit where I took a brand new slide, did the same thing, zeroed everything, stacking on top, and then watching over time what bullet types tend to drift and where they tend to drift. And hey, and that's just one gun, but you got to shoot tens of thousands of rounds to see it, not tens of thousands, 10,000 rounds to see it. And where, and okay, cool. Is that just this gun, this barrel batch from and there's so many variables, like different barrel batches from the same manufacturer, different manufacturers, etc. But there's a lot of phenomenon out there that happens that unless you're shooting high volumes, you won't see it. And a lot of the guys in ballistics at Federal, they joke that it's black magic, it's voodoo magic. You'll go, hey, why did this happen, or what's going on? Because I'm a why guy. I'm an engineer. I got to know why. And I'll go, why? Right. And they go, voodoo magic. I don't know. And so yeah, there's stuff when you shoot a lot, you see that the average consumer does not.
Yeah, I mean, and the average gun owner isn't, I doubt they put 10,000 rounds through their gun in a lifetime.
Yeah,
So
no way.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I totally get that.
And it's reflected in the culture too. Like the gun is the big purchase. And I laugh at guns being like a disposable item. Like I spend more on ammo in 2 weeks than I do on a gun, you know?
Yeah, especially nowadays.
Yep, yep.
Well,
So the ammo and the life of a $500 gun, you'll spend, as a high volume shooter before that gun is shot out, you'll spend $20,000 to $40,000 in ammo.
well, and I don't know what you run on top of your gun if you have an optic, but I shoot carry optics, and my SRO was as much as my gun.
Yep, yep. I have not done any. I've played a little bit, but this upcoming off season, I'm gonna learn the dot, and I will have my first foray into carry optics in 2023.
Oh, okay. Now,
Yep,
what are you
yep.
gonna? I'm sure you're gonna probably run it on a Sig.
Yep, Sig. So when right now I'm all about keeping the consistency. So when I
Hmm.
shoot limited, I don't put a mag well on or anything. I literally just take my 9mm slide off, throw my 40 slide on, and grab 40 magazines, longer 40 magazines, and we're rocking. So same thing for carry optics. I got some slides being made right now that'll be machined for the 509T, the Holosun 509T.
Okay.
And I'll have a pair of those to run and carry optics in 2023.
Okay. All right. Very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
You think you'll make it to nationals for that or no?
Oh, for sure. That's the
That's the plan.
that's the plan. That's the plan. So I when looking at, and this kind of circles us back around to board stuff a little bit,
Yep.
when planning nationals, I don't necessarily have I'm going to shoot every nationals that is in a division that I'm interested in, which right now is limited and carry optics and production, but they've changed the format each year. I think I see pros and cons both ways. The changing format that they've done has been it keeps things like interesting for people, and like, oh, it's different every year, but it also at the sacrifice of stability. There's no like consistent season and structure and all that.
Right.
So you get excitement, but you lack stability, you lack structure. Out of I started shooting seriously around mid 2019, as far as traveling to majors and doing that. Before that, I just shot locals, and I did not I wasn't dry firing every day, training high volume, etc. It was just locals here and there when I felt like it, for the better part of 2008 to 2019, so like 11 years there. So lost my train of thought there.
Shooting nationals.
Yeah. So the nationals, since I've been shooting in 2019, they've had different schedules each year, and I kind of really like the schedule they got coming up this next year. I always felt like the May nationals was too early, especially for us in the north. Like we hadn't even shot outside yet, So
Right.
doing it in June, having the optics nationals in June. That the standalone carry optics being the biggest division, I think that's cool. I think it's cool that they're doing it. I think it's cool that it's where it's at in the season. I think open and PCC is definitely the best pairing. I think that gives opportunity to really right now open shooters see commonly, because open and PCC shooters are mixed with everybody else, so they're used to
Right.
10 hit factors regularly, right? All right, cool. Now that they're paired together, and their guns are the most capable, they can be presented with shooting challenges that drag open and PCC shooters down to a 4 hit factor, a 5 hit factor, by putting targets, swingers at 40 yards, 50 yards, and different stuff that, would not be at all equitable or reasonable to expect of the rest of the division. So I really like that pairing, and I think it's a decent time, goes well together. And then having all the iron sights together at the end of the year, that works for me. I'm good with it. So I'll probably spend the first half of the year shooting carry optics, and the next half shooting production.
I feel like June is still early for a national championship. I kind of liked this year where you had carry optics in early September, everything else in mid October, because it still gave people time, like your JJ Rakazas and all of them, that wouldn't necessarily, like even Mason, his primary division being limited, still gave him time to shoot carry optics and switch back over and get ready for limited nationals. But it is what it is.
What's kind of what's kind of funny about that? I don't know.
What's that?
I don't know where he got the where that misnomer. Probably because he's won 2 in a row. His primary division is production, not limited.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. I'm gonna tell him later that that's out there. I mean, we knew it'd be out there at that point, I guess. But
yeah,
he even said it today. He considers himself to be primarily an iron sight shooter that he's learning or continuing to learn and has learned the dot, and limited is just another another thing to do, another division to try. And for a lot of those guys at the top, there's no reason not to, when you have shooting skills that good. And, I guess it's obviously, I'm not even on that level, but speaking for me personally, like a national championship, if you have the time and the money and the ability, it's a great match. Why wouldn't you shoot as many of them as you could,
Oh yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's kind of how he started shooting limited. And then I was with him, squatted with him the first time he won, and he was not in the super squad at 2020. And it was certainly not expected. He was just going along. We were having a great time shooting the match. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, yeah, bro, you won.
Wow. Well, there you go. Well, the record has been corrected.
Yes.
Mason is a production shooter.
Hopefully I got that right. I'm pretty sure he sees himself as primarily a production shooter.
Okay. Either way, regardless, he's a hell of a shooter.
Hell of a shooter, hell of a guy. Great guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've had him on here. He is a great guy. All right. So getting back to Area 3 real quick.
Yeah.
So that being your primary responsibility, assuming you get elected, you have you want polls.
Yeah.
Very interesting that you put up, you wanted polls for board meetings and such.
Yep. So
now, are you just going to randomly pick topics, or go ahead?
Nope. So, as I wanted to give an example, and I'm not there yet, but I wanted to just take and give an example right now of, if I was there, what would it potentially look like? Because as I said earlier, I'm a man of action. I'm not a man of words. Like, if I'm going to tell you something, I'm going to have it ready. I'm going to have an example. I'm already do it, So I tried out a bunch of different polling software. What did I like? How much did this cost, et cetera? And I found out that Google Forms was the best, for just gathering data, having it transparent. So it's there right now based upon the last board meeting notes that I had looked at. And I basically just went down. So you can click the link at the top to see the meeting minutes. And I just went down item by item and said, hey, what were in the meetings, what was discussed in that meeting according to the minutes, and then developed questions based upon those things that were discussed to see, hey, what does the membership think of these things that are discussed, and or looking at the agenda for the next meeting and saying, hey, what things for the leading into the next meeting, which the discussions were obviously Joe and Derek's suspensions. That was the only thing they had on the agenda. So what do you think of these two things given? And I would have loved to link in there a description of, like, this is the investigation, the results of the investigation, the findings, whatever. There's none of that publicly available. So there's nothing to link there. And then the last one was an example of, I want to be able to bring things to the board, but I don't want to oversaturate it with. So every board meeting, and it's just my idea right now, that may change to every other, only this, once a quarter, whatever. But my idea right now is every board meeting, I'm going to bring an item that was brought to me by the membership to the board meeting to discuss or try to get it added to the agenda or whatever. So these were 4 different things that, somebody, whether it be, one of them was my idea, one of them came from somebody else in a discussion, one of them was emailed to me, whatever, that were things that somebody said, hey, I want to do this. And so in this poll, it collects everybody's responses. And then that's whatever has the most votes there is the primary issue in which my constituency wants me to discuss with the board. And that's the one that I would bring to the next board meeting to try to get added to the agenda.
Okay. Very interesting. I like it. I've used Google Forms in the past, and they're very good. So, and it's free,
and then the
so
cool
you can't beat that.
And then the cool thing too is, obviously you're not filling it out right now, but once you get done, you can click view responses. And when you view responses, you can see how everybody has voted. So it's not like, when we submitted our feedback for the bylaws, there was no publishing of that feedback, seeing like where, how people voted, what did they want, etc. Like, this is completely transparent. It doesn't display who voted for what, but you can see exactly in the form where people had voted.
All right. So I just filled it out. I'm going to hit
so you
submit.
click submit. And then go see previous responses. And now you can see how everybody voted, how many votes were in each one, and how everybody voted.
Reinstate everybody and add a requirement. There we go.
Yep. And so this is just an example. Like, this is me giving a little snippet of how I would do things differently and the different flavor that I would bring to how I see leadership. Leadership being me providing the options, organizing the feedback, and then presenting those to let the members make the decision, not being the decider, not being the dictator that says, this is what we're going to do, this is how it's going to be, just being the organizer and the facilitator.
Okay. Now, let's say I close this. If I close this out.
Yep.
Can I get back into it, say, the day before? Let's say I filled it out the day you put it up, and the day before or the morning of the membership meeting, would I be able to get back in here to see how the numbers have changed?
For sure. You can do it right now. So if you X out of this, and then you go back and you click my link again, so you can X out of this as well.
All right. There we go.
And then you click the link again. Via your Google profile, it already knows that you responded, and then you could go back and edit your responses if you had a changed opinion, or you could see the previous responses and see how the poll had updated. And all those will be stored, basically permanently for any polls that I put out, so people can go back and look at the how people have voted or what issues that they'd wanted to vote on. And my initial structure, it's the exact structure and the logistics of how to execute upon a system like this. Obviously, this is just version 1. Any good system I've engineered, we're not happy until like version 1 I think is great, and then we get to version 2 or 3, and I go look back at version 1 and I go, what was I thinking? That was so inefficient, And and then by the time I get to version 8 or 9, I go, damn, we've built something really cool. And so this is version 1, but it's just a taste of what version 8 or 9 could look like, and I think it could be something really, really cool.
Okay. Now, your Area 3 championship, when I looked at that earlier, I did have a question. You were saying, where is it at? For 2024 and onward, I intend to delegate the role of Area 3 championship match director to the person/proposal chosen by popular vote. Now, here's my question with that. How are you going to keep that from being the largest shooting club in Area 3, from dominating that every single year, and just those members say, hey, let's vote to have it here so we don't have to travel? How do you combat that?
So I don't see that as a problem.
Okay.
Because everyone can vote. I'm going to make sure that the communications go out. I already have a list of every section coordinator and every match director within the section. I'm going to make sure that everyone has fair, equal communication as far as how this process is going to work. The template, I already have a template on there as far as if you want to run the match. Here's a template to start off of, to draft how you would present your match. And if let's say you do have, if you look at area 3, you have some major city centers. You have the Twin Cities in Minnesota. You have St. Louis, which is kind of right on the border. You have Kansas City, and you have other smaller city centers within. But let's say, just for example, you had a city that had 500 shooters who wanted the area match to be here and wanted to shoot here, and the whole rest of the area only had 300 shooters who planned on going to the match. Well, then, yeah, it makes sense to have the match where the majority of the shooters are that plan on going to the match. And if you're in an area in which is passionate enough about hosting it, has the facilities to host it, and has the massive amount of shooters to host it, yeah, rally your people, make sure you got a solid proposal, put it together, and get all your friends and constituents to vote, and you can host it there. I think it's a much more equitable and fair and clear system than how do they do it right now. They just kind of pick whoever the area director just picks where he wants it to go, whether that be what's easiest for him, or what's where he's at, or whatever. I don't know how it's picked right now, but there's no transparency, and there's no opportunity in that process.
All right. I feel maybe I'm looking at it wrong. I kind of feel like I look at it where I live here. We've got some decent ranges. Some of them are very small in membership, but they could handle a larger state match, area match, something like that. But they wouldn't have the shooter base to be able to draw it in. And I almost feel like if you did, you might be able to draw more shooters into that club. Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of this is also, you'll see consistent themes in my logic that I apply to problem solving across all situations or problems, and that I don't know. I don't assume that my experiences or the information I have at my fingertips is absolute. I assume that there is more information out there that I don't know. So by enabling, as on the website, as you can see how the process would work, enabling anyone who wanted to be a match director to say, hey, here's, the template lays out everything about the club and about the match. Like, here's my club. Here's how many bays we have. Here's how many stages I'd have. Here's the entry fee I would charge. Here's my plan for staffing. How, who staff are going to be, or how I'm doing that. Staff compensation, etc. Primary dates, backup dates, etc. All this will be laid out before, and then with, hopefully, maybe it's only one proposal, but multiple proposals where then the members can look at that. How are you going to do your prize table? What's that going to look like? And obviously it's somewhat free form, but you get to explain, like, hey, this is my price. This is my prize table. This is my number of stages. What's your schedule going to look like? Are you going to run it as a 1-day match, a 2 half days, etc.? All these things are laid out. And then the membership has an opportunity to say, hey, I like this proposal. And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of, like, obviously Minnesota, I'm in the Minneapolis area. There's a lot of guys in Minneapolis who love traveling to Grand Island. They love it. It's the big party weekend, traveling out there. They love it. The 9-hour drive doesn't bother them at all. And then there's a lot of guys in Minnesota who's like, we're sick of the drive. We hate going in the middle of nowhere. We wish we could fly there. We wanted to come here, right? And so I don't think that, I don't know how that vote would go. But I want every club in the area, or everyone who has the desire and the drive and the resources to do it, to have an opportunity, and then let the membership as a whole decide what they want their area match to, where they want it to be, and what they want it to look like.
Okay. Well, and when you started saying, you would put all those proposals out, like Grand Isle is, this is their proposal, and this is Range B's proposal with match director so-and-so. Okay,
Yeah.
that actually did kind of make sense, and I like the way that sounded, where they
Yeah.
would have
So
the schedule out and all of that.
yeah. So if you do go back to the website for people who are watching, and this is all live on Faust.systems/area 3, so you can see, I kind of talk a little bit in the top part, but you have the cutoff dates, and then that
Mm-hmm.
template. You can actually click on that template and open that template and see what it looks like, and anyone can fill that out and email it to me, and that's just a basic outline of what's the kind of stuff the information that I want to see in a proposal. And obviously it can be expanded upon, etc. But pictures, aerial pictures of your bays, the range layout, financial, all the different stuff that even the transparency on the budget, like budget transparency is a huge thing. And a lot of people are calling for, transparency on area matches. Like, all right, cool. What's the budget roughly going to look like? And those things are all there for people to vote on.
All
And
right.
it's kind of a package deal. You pick this match director and this location that he proposed. You're really, to a certain extent, you're voting for the guy with his proposal. It's match director / proposal.
I like it.
Um,
That is a fantastic idea.
and so yeah. So it sounds like your original kind of resistance to this, as you heard more about it, it sounded better, right?
Yes.
And so a lot of people ask me, like, what's your flavor? What do you want to do as a match director and this and that and whatever? And it's like, I have my stuff, but like, in like how I like the matches I like and the way I like to do things and whatever, I may draft a proposal and put it in there if I wanted to be the match director, for Area 3 and do that. But I wouldn't just by default select my proposal and do it my way. I would still, if I did want to be in that role, throw my name in the hat and let the members decide.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, I mean, this changes the entire way I was looking at it.
Okay, how did you perceived it? Because that's important to me, because like if because you had obviously cursory glanced at it before we started talking, I want to make sure I can structure my communication better to avoid whatever misconception you had.
Well, what I did not do was actually I read through this, but I did not click on your template. So
Okay.
what I was unaware of was the depth of information you're asking for, and then all of this other information, like how many stages would you have, what type of shooting schedule. So it changed the way I looked at it from voting on what range we're going to shoot it at to the format that we're going to be shooting. That's what
Yeah.
changed. So
It's a full package.
it is. Yeah, and that I did not see initially. So that completely changes it. So I'd be more than willing to drive 9 hours if I thought that was the best format and the best match director proposal that you had. I'd be like, I'm all in.
For sure.
So I like it. All right. So we're going to take a slight detour.
Okay.
Because I have a quick question.
You know what? Give me 1 sec here. I'm looking at my laptop battery. It looks like I'm getting low. I'm gonna move and plug in here.
Okay.
I'm gonna be operating in a little different area here. You can still see me all right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I see you well.
Cool. All right, I'm good.
I have mentioned this in a cursory fashion before to someone, in a joking fashion, in that I was saying I think Area 8 should annex West Virginia from Area 5. But I've looked at this a little bit more recently, and
yeah.
I almost feel like some of these regions could use, to use a political term, redistricting.
Yes. It's funny because I had never, when I got bit by that bug that said, all right, you need to do something, like feel like can't speak up. I got to do something. And I started going through, I'd never actually looked at the area map before. Like, honest to God, I'd never looked at it. And I looked at this and was like, what the heck? Like, how did this happen?
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
just an example, like what I was looking at is like I've had June Kim on. June lives down here in Vegas. So for him to shoot Area 1 up in Washington, that's like someone driving from North Carolina all the way up into Maine,
Yep.
or having to fly that far. That to me seems like they could do a better, like this could almost be redistricted. Let's redo this. Let's look at our USPSA census for Area 1, our census for Area
Hmm.
2, and just start modifying. I mean, it's so weird how you have California, Arizona, New Mexico, and then it goes up into Colorado. And it's like, this is it's a meandering, this is a meandering map. I mean, this is
Yes.
gerrymandering. That's what this is.
and and I wonder if there was like politics at the time that
Right.
made it so that this made sense. Like whenever I see something that doesn't make sense, my brain, I don't know, pessimistic brain goes, all right, who benefited from this? You know?
Right.
But yeah, the map is strange. To be completely frank, with the issues that I want to tackle within the org, this is so far down the list that
I
it's
know.
not even on my radar.
Right.
It's not even worth me putting effort into or fighting over. But if you wanted my quick opinion, yeah, this map looks weird. And if someone as my like someone submitted, like sent me an email and said, hey, this is an issue I want to bring to the board, I would throw that on the list for the next voting on bringing something to the board meeting, and we could roll with it from there. But given the current state of things, I really don't think that that's probably going to be a hot topic on any given poll.
No, I feel like we probably need to settle some other issues, and then we can look at this.
Yes, exactly.
But every time I look at it, I'm like, what in the world is going on? So weird.
It's interesting.
For sure. All right. Yeah, I really like that. Now, dag nabbit, I had a question too. All right, so we're going to back up a quick second. What are your thoughts on, because I know this is one of those two things, 2011 and carry optics and production division. You are a production shooter, so.
Yes, I am a production shooter. Let me preface all my divisional opinions with this is a crazy new thing, but I don't vote how I feel. I vote how the members tell me to vote. I put out polls, just like you guys saw example of my polls. And even if it goes against the way I think things should be done, if the majority of my members think that a division should be this or that or whatever, I'm going to vote for the majority.
Okay.
My second caveat is more or less my general feeling. I don't feel strongly about most of the divisional stuff. Just tell me the rules and I'll play by them. That's kind of more or less how I feel. If you really put a gun to my head and say, Luke, what's your opinion? You got to have opinions. I know you have opinions. The first thing, when you look at divisions, why do we have divisions and what do the divisions do? If you have too many divisions, you end up with not enough competitors in each division. So it really like thins out the competition. This is a competition. We're competing, right? It's for score. So too many divisions, you thin out the divisions. And then you have the other aspect of divisions, in which is defining that division. And that can be very difficult to do in some cases. For example, I shot my first IPSC match recently, and going through equipment check for production, I shot standards so that I didn't have to deal with any of that. But I'm seeing guys go through production, and it's like, all right, so one guy's got these grips that have a palm swell on them, and he gets waved through as fine, and the next guy has the same grips on the same gun, and it's like, nope, those don't meet the contour, so therefore they're not good. But at another match they were good, but etc. So the other aspect that jumps out to me is, one, you don't want to dilute the divisions too much to dilute the competition, and then on the other side you have to have very clear enforceable rules that are very clear and easy to understand. And then also understanding with those rules too, if you leave any kind of gap, have a lot of very smart people in the community that will find any way to get an edge. So they got to be rules
Absolutely.
that are well written. That being said, you mentioned some hot topics there. What was it? Limited optics.
2011. Yeah.
Yeah, or 2011s in that. God, I'm not even an optics shooter, so I don't even feel qualified to put an opinion out there on that one. Like, I don't know. The great thing about pushing things to the membership vote is like I don't have to have a strong opinion. Like I'm a poll my members, and whatever they say, we'll go with. I don't know. I'm not a 2011 shooter. I'm not an optics shooter. I don't know how you solve that problem, or if there even is a problem to be solved. Production was the other one. The two big questions that I see in production are production 15 versus 10, which is obviously an IPSC thing,
Right.
as well as being, I see, if there was one, since I am a production shooter, I kind of get to have an opinion on that. I do like, I think the production 15. And here's my main thing is if you're in production 15, you don't need the massive amount of mag pouches that we currently need. If you're saying production's the easy division to get into and it's the cheap, easy, whatever, like right now you got to buy 5 mag pouches to be competitive in production, and tons of magazines. And, I have my dry fire mag set, which there's a couple mags where your training mag set and then your match mag set. And you have so many magazines and mag pouches and stuff. So, going to 15 and reduce that a little bit. And then, it's not like there's any production gun on the market right now that doesn't have at least above 15 round capacity. So I don't see that being an issue. So if that one were Luke, what's your opinion? I'd be for it, but do I think that's even on the top 10 list of things I need to go after in the org? Absolutely not. It's way down there.
Right. And I mean, look, you're getting compact and subcompact guns that have more that hold, almost
Yes.
15 rounds or more. So
Yes.
yeah, I think a lot of the, maybe at the time that the rules were written, 10 was about average. I don't know. But
And the other thing that's really cool that I realized last night, so I'm obviously in a house Airbnb with a bunch of other competitive shooters, and when you start crowdsourcing solutions like I want to do, people come up with stuff that me in a vacuum never would have thought of. I never would have thought of changing the divisions to be kind of like this or whatever. And so just last night they're having a discussion, not about divisions, but about like a mentorship program and how to get more youth or more females into the sport, and how to, and how they could structure it and how we could integrate it into the website and this and that. And as ideas were bounced back and forth in the room, it came, the ending solution that everybody was kind of like, yeah, that's really cool, that would work, was something that there's no way I could have come up with on my own. No way. And so I kind of feel the same way about divisions. Like you obviously have, one way of looking at it, which is be like, make our divisions the same as IPSC, so that we're the same as the international governing body, and that's it, done. And then you have the other way, which is like, it's okay for us to be different, and then you could be as different as you want it to be, so we obviously have the way things are now. You could make changes or not, and slight changes, drastic changes, but through crowdsourcing the opinions via people being able to submit, hey, here's my change proposal, and then me putting those out and polls to them to see which ones catch fire and which ones don't, we could come up with some really cool things, I think.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to come up with ideas. Just everybody sit around and throw ideas out, and next thing you know, you throw something out that catches somebody's attention, and somebody just refines it, and then someone else refines it. And next thing you know, you have a solution.
Yep.
Let's see. This is not necessarily your campaign stance or anything like that, but this goes back to the conversation we had earlier, even about the presidential election and the time frame that it took, I see that voting for Area 3 starts November 15th.
Yes.
The last
Yep.
several elections, we've known like the very next day what the results were with the way they've gone to electronic voting. We've basically known the results the next day. I could see getting it.
After it closes on
Yeah.
because you mean like after the month period when it closes. Yep.
Yeah. Like it closes December 16th. So, like December 17th, we basically know the results. You might want to wait a few days to see if somebody by chance mailed something in, but for the
Yep.
most part, you know. And what I'm getting at is as assuming again, all of these questions are assuming you get elected. I feel like waiting until a month and a half or 2 months actually after knowing is an exorbitant amount of time. Like I feel like January 1 could start your runoff. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then mid-February, where they're talking about runoff voting, you could actually have the individual notified that he's been elected and be in office.
Yeah. And so I guess to give a little more background on what, like, I put this together for my own information. And then I had so many people asking me, like, hey, when do we vote? I was like, all right, well, it looks like I should put this out for everybody else too. Because I had to go through the bylaws and I literally, that schedule that's there, I had typed it up and then I reread and edited it because I'll type something up, late at night, I'll go to bed and maybe the next evening I'll look at it again and reread the bylaws, and I changed it. And it was probably 4 or 5 iterations before I was like, okay, cool. You got it right. It's good. It was just
Wow.
hard to read the bylaws and easy to miss a sentence about 15 days here,
Yeah.
30 days here. And so this is, and obviously I saw that they put out some of the initial stuff, obviously not about the runoff, but about the original one. And it looks like they rounded by like a day or two here or there, but whatever, that's noise. But with that, yeah, this system is clearly built on assuming you have to mail in votes and count votes, which is just not how it works anymore. So yes, this could be significantly compressed. An example of that is, I looked at the format and I used kind of the same format as my example for like how I would do a selection process for a Area 3 match director and location. And you can see how much I compressed. I think I compressed the voting from 30 days to 15. And I said, hey, I can deliver you results the next day. Yeah, so cutoff date of 10/31, voting for 15 days, and then
Right there.
and then
The very next
results
day.
reported the next day. Because I
Yeah.
was looking at my personal schedule and I was like, could I, I don't know what I'm going to be doing on 11/15. It was like, yeah, it's not going to take very long for you to report results. That's a reasonable ask.
Well, and really, it's just a matter, you could literally just post on your social media face, so and so is the match director for 2024, and the match is going to be at ABC. And then people could just go on the website and look at everything.
Bingo. So they already
Yeah.
have their drafted proposals. So I mean, you've kind of seen. I'm all about consistency and message and clear communication, whether it be on my Instagram or my website or whatever. I'm using the same message. It's the same stuff. So it's just like that. When the proposal gets selected, I update the website to say, hey, this is the selected proposal, for 2024 or whatever it is, and then send the email blast out to the email list saying, hey, this is a selected proposal, updated on Instagram, Facebook, wherever, all the social media sites, and everybody knows. And then the match director knows that he can start putting everything in stone.
Yeah. I like, and that's where I was going with the other one. It's like, man, this is stretched out so far. This is crazy. But
yeah,
yeah.
it is what it is. Right now, it is what it is. That's what the bylaws say.
Right. I get it. But that's why I asked. I mean, I know there's a lot of other stuff, but I still feel like that's probably one of those things that wouldn't take long to correct and fix, and
Yeah.
before the next
Item
major round
27.
of.
Yep. 27 on the list. It'll slide in somewhere around 27.
I'm going to vote to move it to 11.
Okay. All you got to do, just like I said, I think on there, anybody. And the other thing that we kind of talked about, you alluded to a little bit earlier, that like area directors don't just represent the people in their area. They represent everybody. They're voting for everybody. So I didn't necessarily explicitly say, but like a lot of people probably feel like, oh, I'm not in area 3. No, anyone can go in and say, this is how I feel on this issue. Let me know how you feel. Or you want to email me and say, hey, I'm in area 7, but this is an issue I want you to bring to a board meeting. I'll add it to my poll for the next round. Like, I represent all members, not just area 3 members.
Well, and I could see somebody doing that. Let's say that my area director is not responsive. Then I could see where I might reach out to somebody else and say, hey, I've tried 3 times. I can't get a response from my area director. Could you please bring this up? So I could see that.
I'm happy to be that guy.
Okay. Well,
so what I'm saying is go shoot me an email with your any proposals you want, and I'll get them added.
Well, earlier when you started to say all you have to do is, I was waiting for you to say all you have to do is move to area 3. You're good.
No, I'm making it easier than that.
Well, Luke, is there anything we didn't touch on that you feel, or something we did that you feel needs to be expanded on before we close this thing out?
No, I think we've hit on a lot of really good points. I appreciate you doing the research and kind of going through long format like this is interesting for me. I'm typically a man who likes to be clear and concise, and I don't speak much, but I put thought into every word I put out there. And obviously on my website, everything there was combed through and really tried to present the message I wanted to present in a clear, concise format. So I appreciate you kind of going through that. And we really did cover everything that I'd want to talk about here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, and good luck at Production Nationals.
Awesome. Thanks. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.